Yo, what is good, YouTube? Welcome back to another JC2K video. In today's video, we are going to be talking about offensive and defensive settings, what the best settings are, and why I am using the settings that I am using right now here in NBA 2K26 MyTEAM. Hopefully, this video will help y'all get a little bit better at the game, get the right settings on. Now, I do want to make this clear before anything else, settings can only do so much. They won't really play the game for you at the end of the day, and especially defensively, especially with how good offense is right now. Number one, sometimes it's just not going to matter what settings you got on. Sometimes they're going to score regardless, but sometimes I think the biggest skill gap is knowing how to use the settings and how to manually defend yourself. There's a lot more that goes into defense than just your settings, but your settings are a good place to start and are something that you do want to make sure you have optimized, because if you don't, it will make things that much harder. So with that being said, before we hop into it, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help me push towards the 50,000 subscriber mark on the channel. I upload every single day, multiple videos a day. Would really appreciate it if y'all do subscribe. Without further ado, let's get into it. We'll start with offensive settings. Now, I say offensive settings. There's not really any offensive settings. The only offensive setting that I actually do is set a freelance. That's it. If you want to run plays, you do that here as well. You can set your play selection for both, I believe, your starters and your bench, or just your, oh no, I think it's just two pages of plays, basically. You have a page 1 and a page 2 of plays. And if you're a big play runner, you can set a lot of stuff in here and replace it with whatever you want. You see what I'm saying? You can set your plays from your playbook right here for your play selection, but I don't run plays. The only thing that I set is this freelance. I have my freelance set to 5 out. That being said, I do think Bucks 2018 is a good freelance to run as well. Point isn't bad, and then comp is pretty good as well. I think those basically all do kind of the same thing. I think point's a little different. I think if you'd run point, it does like run a little 3-point play for you at the beginning of the possession as well, which is kind of cool, but it seems like it does that a lot if I'm not mistaken. Some of these other freelances have like built-in motions and stuff and different plays that will happen consistently out of them. But what I like about 5 out, Bucks 2018, and comp is that it gives you that 5 out spacing that you're really looking for, especially when you're running pick and roll, preventing people from cutting out of the corner or sitting where they're not supposed to sit on the court, or whatever the case may be. It's how I feel like you want the spacing to be. And I'm going to demonstrate how to put on a freelance real quickly in this game, just so y'all can see how to effectively use this to get proper spacing on the offensive end of the court. Again, I would just run 5 out, Bucks 2018 or comp. I don't really think it matters that much which one you run. I think they're all going to basically do the exact same thing. But at the end of the day, what you're looking for here is you're looking for spacing, so that if you run pick and roll, you try to dribble penetrate, you have guys spacing around the court so that you can get to the rim without there being additional defenders in the way. If there's help defense that comes, you can attack and punish that help defense with the spacing that you have, making it harder for a defensive player to rotate and things like that. And just all the other benefits of 5 out spacing that do come. So all you're going to do, you're going to hit right on your D-pad, and then you're going to hit RB, and you're going to hit freelance, and then you're going to select your freelance. And so I'm going to hit A, 5 out, and just like that, I have my 5 out freelance set. So you'll see if I call for a pick and roll, you see how Doug Christie spaces to the corner, and Pascal Siakam spaces to the hash, and Bruce Bowen spaces to the opposite corner immediately. The floor is automatically spaced to a 5 out as soon as I call for a pick and roll, every single time, basically. And it will do that from wherever I am on the court too. Like if I throw the ball to Bruce Bowen and run to the corner here and then call for a pick and roll from the corner, you see how they'll space again. You got guys, you got the court spaced out for you, so you have room to operate. So I could come here and I could peek. If I call for a pick and roll here, I'm higher up, so somebody's going to go to the corner to space the floor. But you see how the floor spacing enables you to get ideal flexibility offensively. If you dribble penetrate, there's room around the rim. There's not going to be a defender waiting for you because there's not an offensive player clogging the paint. You're going to be able to run your pick and roll and your pick and pop with optimal space because there's room for your center to roll to, and there's room for your center or whoever you're screening with to pop to as well. It's just very important to have that proper 5 out spacing so that then your rim run is more effective and your 3 hunt or your pick and pop or whatever it may be is more effective. And it also makes you harder to help off of because your spacing is good. And I think spacing is just one of the most important things in this game. And it's something that I think newer players in my team forget about pretty often and are not prioritizing intentionally. You have to have high level offensive space to be able to manage your offense and operate at a high level. It's just crucial. Now, with that being said, that's the only main offensive setting. That's basically all there is. Defensive settings is where I think the difference really comes out. I will real quickly, before we talk about defensive settings, talk about the rest of this. On the fly lineups, here's my recommendation for on the fly lineups. Set your bench as one of these on the fly lineups. It doesn't even matter which one you pick, but I would do like 3-point defense, quick or tall or free throw. Just like set one of these custom lineups to what you want your bench to be. That is what I have. Then when you sub, you can go down on the D-pad and then hit right trigger. And after you hit right trigger, it'll give you a list of the custom lineups. Select the custom lineup that you have set to your bench. It will sub in your bench automatically. So then you can go from your starters to your bench smoothly, and you don't just sub in your bench and it gives you random guys and all that type of stuff. You can actually set what bench subs in so that they can sub in just as a 5-man unit, which is pretty useful and helpful in my opinion. But the other stuff, player minutes, this only matters if you don't have your player minutes on manual. If you have it set to auto, this will manage how your auto subs work basically, but I don't auto sub, so that's not something that's helpful for me. And then you have coach settings. I'd make sure your adaptive coaching engine is off. Make sure this timeout, player minutes, and substitution are on manual, and make sure late game fouling is on manual as well. Those are the only settings in here that I think really matter all that much. But that being said, defensive settings. You have some interesting defensive settings this year, and I honestly think it depends on how you want to guard and also what player you're playing against in terms of card. I like my base on-ball pressure to be on moderate against most cards. If I am going up against a really dangerous 3-hunting card, somebody who's got good SIGs, and as the year progresses, we will have a lot more cards with really good SIGs, and this on-ball pressure will probably change. I'm going to probably want to put that on tight or even on smother against those types of ball handlers. The thing is, with the way the rim run is right now, I think having it on moderate is nice, gets rim run a little bit less, and I feel like with most people's jump shots, especially off the dribble, not being that fast, even on moderate, you can easily click on and contest most jumpers. Now here's the thing, they're gonna green the contest anyway if they're a good player, so that doesn't matter as much, but I do like having that on moderate. Now, I had my off-ball pressure on moderate as well briefly, but I think having it on tight is the way to go, just because it makes it harder for you to get shot over against guys who are really good no-dip catch and shoot shooters like a Klay Thompson or Bruce Bowen or somebody like that. You might even want to consider putting this on deny, especially if it's a guy who's not an incredible athlete at this point in the year. Just face guard him basically. Don't give him an opportunity to even get a shot off. I think tight in general is good though. If it's a weak shooter or a terrible jump shot, like for example, if you go up against Diamond Marcus Camby, he's got decent shooting stats and badges, but his jumper is terrible. I'd put him on moderate. If you're going up against Pink Diamond Dikembe Mutombo, I'd put him on gap. You know what I'm saying? So you have baseline settings and then you have individual customized player settings. Now, I only put on individual customized player settings when I'm playing in tournaments. That's about the only time I actually try that hard, to be honest. Otherwise, I'll just generally leave it on just team settings. But in the actual tournament, I would go do player by player settings depending on what that player's strengths and weaknesses are. On-ball screen, I have on go under. On-ball screen for the center, I have on go over. I didn't mean to have that on go over. I don't think I want that on go over. I'm going to leave that one on automatic actually for right now. I don't remember having that on go over, but I have my ball handle, whoever's guarding the ball handler, I generally have them going under right now still, just because I don't think the SIGs for the most part are enough to really make you pay for that. Now, sometimes that does give up the fade, but it also, I feel like, helps you to get through screens a little bit smoother. Also makes it a little bit easier to X switch, because when they go under, it's easier for them to pick up the screener if you switch with the guy guarding the screener out onto the ball handler. And it's an easier way to try to pick up that slip and make the slip not damage you as much if you are X switching the screen. If you don't understand what I mean by X switching, I would go look at the video that I did last year. Just go look up how to X switch in 2K25. That video will help you explain what that concept means and how that helps you defensively. I will probably make another video here in 2K26 on X switching as well though, here at some point. But hedge, I have my hedges on catch hedge, just to prevent, I mean, to be fair, I don't think your hedge settings matter that much, because generally speaking, if you're good on defense, you're going to be managing the pick and roll yourself. You're going to be controlling both the center and the lock, whoever's guarding the ball handler. at different points in the possession. So you should be able to manually hedge and then play the hedge how you want. And I'll play hedges differently. Sometimes I'll hard hedge and I'll even like blitz a screen, especially if bump steals are better. I'd be blitzing screens more, but right now bump steals aren't very good, so I'm not blitzing screens very much. But sometimes you play a drop coverage and you let them come off the screen. Now in this year's game, with the way fades are, playing drop coverage is really dangerous because if your lock touches the screen at all, it's a wide open fade unless you help off the hash, and helping off the hash can be very aggressive. It's kind of tough to play too, especially with the way no dip is this year off the hash. It's just, it can be a little bit difficult to defend the pick and roll at times for fades. I like catch hedge though, just because generally speaking prevents from giving up the slip. I almost think at times this year that having your hedge on a hard hedge could almost, or even like a soft hedge, could potentially be helpful just to potentially cut off the ball handler a little bit more. I may experiment with soft hedge at some point to try to cut off the ball handler a little more and stop the fades. The question is, would a soft set hedging center get slipped behind too easily still? And the answer I think is probably yes, when left to their own devices at least. And I think definitely makes you more vulnerable to the quick slip and stuff. But depending on how your opponent plays, if you're playing against somebody who is really fade happy, you might want to touch this to soft hedge potentially, or even hard hedge, and just, you could even switch everything if you wanted to. Like, there are ways to change the settings. But I do have stay attached on always. This just prevents them from switching without me wanting them to switch. Prevents my center from switching onto the ball handler when I don't want him to switch onto the ball handler. He's going to stay on the center unless I switch him onto the ball handler manually. You know what I'm saying? It just gives me more control, and the CPU is going to do less unpredictable things where they're going to switch when I don't want them to switch, things like that. Because when they switch and I don't want them to switch, that can mess up the way I'm playing defense. You know what I mean? So for me, having that on always is very important. I got post off ball screen on automatic, double team perimeter on manual, as well as post on manual. I don't want my players doubling. I think this is what it's on anyways as a base setting, but I don't want my players doubling unless I send the double team. So again, manual. Switch rules, off ball, switch auto. I mean, I don't actually use this. I think switch auto is just the base setting. Leave that on the base setting. Pre-rotate, no, I don't want my players rotating. I want to rotate for them. The help settings I always have on no help. Again, you'll notice that a lot of these settings I have on either like the base stuff or like the manual stuff, or like no help, for example, on these help settings. The reason that I have all those settings set up like that is because I want to make sure that I am the one who is in control at all times in the defensive end of the court. I want to control every rotation. I don't want my players helping when I don't want them to help and give a wide open three on the corner. For example, if you had drive help on, that's what they'll do. Screen help, players will come and help, for example, when they shouldn't. You know what I'm saying? Their rotations are just going to be predetermined by the CPU instead of determined by me, and I think it makes it harder for me as a defensive player. I want to control the rotation. I want to rotate off of a third defender, if a third offensive player, if I'm trying to rotate to a slip, for example, to help with a screen or something like that. But again, I just want control. That's why I have those on the no helps. And then extended pressure I have on automatic. If you turn this on, it'll basically like automatically full court press. Basically, I don't recommend extending pressure though. Either press or don't, depending on if you want to press or not. That being said, that is going to do it for today's video. I hope y'all did enjoy. Hopefully this is a helpful video to y'all in terms of settings and stuff. And again, feel free to customize the settings how you want, and remember to try to, like, if you're really trying to sweat and trying to get better, cater your settings to each individual offensive player on your opponent's team, because settings change based on what a card is good at or not good at, especially on things like on-ball screens. You go under or not, pressures on ball and off ball. How do you play that? Like, those types of things, those types of settings can obviously be changed depending on the player. So with that being said, I'm done yapping. I hope y'all did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more 2K content very, very soon, and I appreciate y'all. Peace.